to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
You're alive.
Okay, we're live. No promo. Aloha, everybody, and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha, Alex Lessin. Got feedback. Let's see if I can pick that. Okay. And we're at revolution.radio. Our producer is Mad Painter, Thomas Becker, and our guest today is Gary McKinstry. And I just navigated away from my bio I had on him. I'll have to Gary. Oh, here it is. Gary is a professional psychic medium. He's internationally known. He's a medium, psychic, minister, doctor of philosophy and religion, 33-degree Scottish Rite Mason, teacher, hypnotherapist, paranormal specialist, mentor, and life coach, radio and television, personal appearances, and he is dedicated to helping people with all walks of life and death. So we're going to have a really incredible show, and so he is out of, where are you from? Oh, wait, no, don't answer yet, don't answer. Okay. He'll tell us more, because my site's down and I had a bio up, but it's lost in the storms in the Midwest. I can't access the website. But before we bring on Gary, Dr. Lessin, Sasha, are you there? Say aloha to the world.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Aloha. I'm delighted to hear from our producer that I'm alive. I wasn't sure, but he said we're alive, so okay. Couldn't tell for sure. And I'm really glad to have Gary. I can see by we got the camera. He isn't just a medium; he's a happy medium, which is just what we need these days. Okay, yeah. Janet will give you now. She knows how to do it really good.
Good.
Well, Gary, we'd like to hand the mic over to you. We have this talking stick mic that we can't see, but it's virtual. And I'm going to pass it to you, and you're going to tell us about yourself. You know, our listeners may not fully understand what a medium is and how you got into mediumship, you know, a little bit about your life, how you started. So we'll talk to you for about 15, 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to start asking you questions, okay?
That sounds
good. Away.
First of all, yes, I'm a psychic medium. I don't know if there are unpsychic mediums, but what happens is it's almost like I have to put myself in another dimensional plane. And when I do, I seem to be able to connect with a consciousness that's not from here, so to speak, a higher plane or a separate consciousness. And I've been doing this publicly for the past 35 years. We're fairly well known, especially in New England. We travel all around. We do large venues for up to anywhere from 2 to 3, 4, 500 people. We also do private sessions, which is what I was doing today. My intent, basically, it's not just entertainment. We try to connect people so we can help them with their issues, their problems. Sometimes we can help them on their road to closure. Sometimes they need that little word from people. And sometimes we get the curious. People come because they've never done this before and they want to know what it's about. On an average day, I probably read for, maybe 5 or 6 people. After that, what happens is you can only go so far with this. Energetically, it takes quite a bit out of the person reading because you're putting yourself in a little bit of an altered state. And probably the biggest thing you have to learn, it's not so much the connecting part, it's how to gracefully get in and gracefully get out so you can actually deal with people. On my level, if I just connected, I'd be sitting there just by myself, just out in space and, connecting with a dimensional form. So I have to keep 1 foot here and 1 foot on the other side, so to speak. And it's a fascinating thing. On a daily basis, you also don't know what you're going to get because no one comes here telling me what they're looking for. Today I handled a triple murder. I handled a suicide, basically, and then I went on to handle something that was pretty mundane. It was kind of nice. And that's kind of like our, you know what I mean? Grandma fell asleep and didn't wake up, and that was kind of nifty. Also work for, like I said, I've done a lot of radio. I have a monthly show out in Springfield, Massachusetts. And by the way, just to let people know, I live in Dudley, Massachusetts, which is, if anybody's familiar with Massachusetts, we're in the center of Massachusetts, almost on the Connecticut border. We live in the country, which is nice. We have like 3 acres here and it's quiet. We're in a 100-year-old house. And my wife and I, and by the way, we have a normal life. I have our youngest is in college. He's a music major up at Salem State University. We have other children. They're all pretty much grown and gone. So most of the time it's myself, my wife, and the dogs. So, it's nothing is an idyllic life. We have daily normal stuff like everybody else. But for the most part, we live a fairly traditional life, except for I'm a psychic. I also do every day. Yeah, and by the way, it's not quite like on television in the real world, because everybody thinks, like the district attorney comes to my house and says, "Can you help us figure this out?" Or so if you watch TV and you watch the TV psychics, it's nice, but it doesn't quite work that way. We do get calls. We do get calls from first responders when people are missing. Unfortunately, usually they call me about a week or 2 after they're missing, which it would be nice if they called right away. We do get a few of those. My wife Virginia and I have been on many recovery operations, finding people who have been lost and confused out there. I do that also. So I'm a pretty much all-around guy. When I was younger, I studied. I'll use the term.
Yeah, how did you first realize that you were psychic and you had disabilities? How old were you?
Well, at about 13 or 14, I pretty much realized there was something going on. But I'm not exactly a kid. So back then, when I was young, if you ran around telling people you saw dead people, it'd pretty much give you electric shock and, give you some kind of wonderful drug. So up until like the late 80s, I pretty much maintained or managed it on my own. And then back in the 80s, we came out with cable television. And suddenly there were mediums and psychics on TV, and I could come out of the closet with it.
Uh-oh, we're frozen.
You know, so suddenly...
Yeah, I was psychic when I was a kid, too. So you don't want to tell those people because they'll lock you up. Or at least they'll shame you. Or call you crazy.
I was very lucky. I had interesting parents. They didn't poo-poo it, and you know, they didn't tell me you shouldn't do that. You know, it was kind of like they were very supportive, kind of like we are with our children. You know, so no matter what it is, as long as you love it, as long as you're doing it, and like they always said, if you're helping people, it's worth doing. So, you know, it works well for us. On my way to become the psychic medium, I also studied, I'll use the term magic in the 20th century. I have a degree in philosophy and religion. Basically, I've pretty much been all over, at least the Western world. I've been from Maine to Moscow to London to, you name it, chasing magic and things that are a little different in life. Virginia and I have lectured at Harvard in the divinity school. We lectured on magic in the 20th century. I've taught classes pretty much all over the place. Plus, we're connected to a lot of interesting people. So there's always something happening. You know, like I said, almost on a daily basis, our life never changes. You know, it never stops. The phone rings, something happens. And I have to give my wife a lot of credit because she takes all the phone calls. She does all the pre-screening to make sure what's going on. So she's like the other half of me. You know, I get to handle the dead people, and she's laughing. She's in the background over there, and she gets to handle the living people. I don't know which. Sometimes I think the other side's a lot. Yeah, you know. Well, you know how it works. You know, and by the way, in case people are wondering, back in the 70s, let's say, there were a lot of people that were channeling higher entities. You know, I don't know if you remember, like the Seth books and all of those things.
Right.
And it's interesting, but for what I do, I try to kind of channel on a lower vibrational plane. You know, most of the people that come see me, you know, most of the people that come see me are not looking for prophetic things from, you know, 5,000 years from now, or they're not looking for, most of them are looking to find the answer to, did I do a good job with this person? Are they upset with me? How do I atone this? Should I go on? You know, so it's a little different than what people think. So, you know.
So we have the Hollywood version of what it is. We have Seth and Ramda, who try to make it the higher level beings, but you're the average. You know, Grandma died and she can't find her false teeth. Or they couldn't find her false teeth. My grandmother, they couldn't find her false teeth to bury her in, so she had to be buried without her false teeth.
Oh, jeez.
They were trying to figure that out. That was years ago, but so my mother was upset.
You know, and don't get me wrong, have I ever channeled on that higher plane or the higher level? Sure. You know, and is it fascinating? Is it interesting? Yes. But for the most part, I find our world isn't ready for most of what they have to say anyway. We have so many enlightened people on the planet, which is wonderful, but lately we seem to have so many barbaric people that, you know, a lot of them aren't ready to hear what's out there anyway. So anyway, that's pretty much the whole deal. When I taught magic on the basis of vibrational manipulation, not so much, you know, the hokey pokey stuff. You know, I think a lot of people.
What do you mean by magic? You said vibrational manipulation. So what explain that a little bit.
The entire universe, the entire world is basically, if you go on a subatomic structure, we're all vibrating atoms, neutrons, and neurons. We vibrate at a high rate to keep us at a constant so we stay intact, so we don't split apart and become part of the universe. And if you learn how to manipulate the vibrational pattern or the energy out there, basically you can make little bumps and twists that make things happen. Remember a few years ago there was the book The Secret? And which is basically old magic brought up to a more modern date. But if you learn to manipulate your vibrational pattern and the energy around you, you can manifest, you can make things happen, you can basically change kind of like the structure of what will be. Now, you can't make, let's say, a purple unicorn because there are no purple unicorns. But within our realm of possibilities, with our given planet, it's kind of like the Force. You remember Star Wars? We just had a with that, you can kind of like change that vibrational pattern to make things come, to make things go, and you still have to work with it once it happens. But that's the form of magic we're talking about. You know, I studied Egyptian magic, Middle Eastern magic, and they all come down to the basic premise of how to change your personal vibration to match that which you need. So that's kind of what I mean by magic. You know, even the healing aspect.
The magic aspect is confusing because it's been downplayed and it's focused on religion and science. But magic actually exists. We do have the ability to change things. Sasha, are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool.
Would you like to ask
it's not what you do is so much absolutely like what I as a psychotherapist in the Jungian tradition study. I work with Hal Stone. Do when we do what's called voice dialogue, where I empathize with each of the subpersonalities that a person has. With my subpersonality that's similar, because at the heart of every subpersonality, so to speak, there's an archetype or a sort of a fractal of the universe that I have, and so does the client have. And to the degree that I can empathize with them, I can at least do it at that level. Those are just different words, but it sounds, when I hear you talking, you know, it sounds like you're saying the exact same things, just with different terminology. That's how I take it, anyhow.
Well, we're pretty much on the same page. I come from what's considered the magical world. You come from the psychotherapist point. It all intersects. It all matches. You know, and by the way, when it comes down to the empathetic point, even with what I do, you have to have the feeling in. You have to be able to match the tone. You have to be able to. It's like you have to connect. You can't just, you know, there's no willy-nilly like in Harry Potter, like poof, it's there. There has to be some form, reason, and rhyme in the universe. And once you match that, you find that things open up. Now, this does not mean that you'll never have a bad day. It doesn't mean that God forbid, if you wanted to manifest money, you're not going to wake up with a bag of money in your door. But at some point, if you put out the right vibration, it's kind of like the phone will ring and you'll get an opportunity. Now, if you don't take the opportunity, it's not my fault, you know, I mean, or if the person's doing this, the moderator. So that's the part, a lot of times I think when I was teaching, I think people were disappointed. They wanted the easy fix, so to speak, and they forget that you're an energetic person and you still have to put your energy behind whatever you're doing. So if you put the formula together and you put all three, the empathy or the energy, and then you put the action, then things start to really equate and happen. So that's kind of the premise.
I just wonder, you know, like in the kind of psychotherapy I do, once we've explored the different subpersonalities, we practice centering ourselves so that the different aspects are available, to the center, the chooser. The whole idea is for the person to walk out as the chooser and to no longer be dependent on me, because they've learned a system of embracing the opposites within them. And so that's the system. They walk away with a system, whether the particulars can change, but now it's theirs.
I just had a young lady who basically was claiming that she was possessed by a demonic entity. And she told us that, you know, over a period of let's say, the last 12 months, that the demon told her to do this and the demon told her to do that, and the demon was ruining her life, blah, blah, blah. And we started to, and by the way, I do not take anything like that at face value. My thing was, first of all, I had to question her to find out what happened in her life to cause a demon. At first I spoke to her rationally and said to her, first of all, you have to understand you're not the most powerful being on the planet. Why does a demon want to mess with you? What are you going to do to change things? She didn't like that very much. When I started saying, if I was a demon, wouldn't I go after Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump? Wouldn't it make more sense to go with someone that can push the button, so to speak? Not some young girl that works at Starbucks. What's she going to do? Mess up somebody's Frappuccino? So, that was step one. And then step two was to get her to realize that she has control over her own life and that whatever is there. By the way, I felt kind of bad. I said to her, the demon's getting a bad rap here. If it's really a demon, again, he's got to be pretty low level. And then beyond that, the point is, it's kind of like, why do you, well, think about it. You got a low-level demon here. You're really happy. You're happy going to the mall and messing with something. That's not cool. So after we finally got through that part, and I explained to her how many other people that she was affecting with her demon, which is probably why she had her demon. And then I said to her, why do you need it? And she said, well, what do you mean? I said, why do you need a demon to protect you when you could protect yourself? Wouldn't you rather be self-empowered? And we went through this whole thing. And by the time I was done, it pretty much came out that basically what the demon was is the young lady at one point had a really bad encounter, and she had put on a lot of weight. That was her protection. Then she had lost the weight, and suddenly people were paying attention to her, but she didn't know how to handle it, so she created a demon to keep these people back. And by the time we were done, by the way, I'm not the end. I sent her to a therapist after to get to the root of her real problem. But my big thing was I denoted the fact that, hey, look, let's not blame it on an otherworldly force when it's quite possible that, you have a real world force here. You have a real issue. But let's not coat the issue with the supernatural when it could be very natural. And that's also part of my job. I'm not debunking. If anybody wants to run around and I believe that there are powers out there and there are lower vibrational entities, but not everything equates to either demonic or angelic. We have quite a bit of power on our own, and sometimes you have to separate power, and sometimes you have to give power back to the person. So that's also part of my job on a daily basis. So
that's wonderful. You sound like a psychotherapist.
By the way, I do not.
That brings to mind.
I do not.
That whole, in psychotherapy, we say that any natural desire or any part of you, deep need that you have, is really, if it's suppressed, it becomes what we call demonic. That is, you get defenses to keep it in. Sometimes it bursts out, and your prime self can't handle it, and so forth. So in psychotherapy, what we really go for is what is the underlying need of the part of you that other parts consider demonic. What brought it into existence? What did it need? And how has your defense against it served you then and through your life, and what are its current interests? That's how but it's like but what you do is even better, because it's like when I was crying like a little boy and my dad would take me on his knee and he'd change my tears to laughter. Your way is just beautiful.
Now, I do not claim to be a clinical psychotherapist. I'm just, like I said, I'm a medium. It is interesting when I mentioned the part about either the demonic or parasitic attacks. I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman named Paul Eno.
No.
Oh, yeah. I think we had him. Yeah, we had him on our show one time. Yes. Uh-huh.
He's a delightful man, and a couple of weeks ago I had a chance to have a really great chat with him, and we became fast friends. And his theory is that a lot of what people consider demonic are actually parasitic from a dimensional plane. And I even with Paul, I had to say, that's a wonderful theory, but how do you separate the self-created from? And, he's quite well trained in religious aspects, and we get into this whole deep discussion about it. But the biggest thing was, even with Paul, I didn't just buy the fact that an other dimensional being is coming here to feed on just a person. I have trouble with that. I agree more with Sasha and yourself that the root of the problem quite often is the person, and it's either a denial aspect or it's something that's a block where they don't feel comfortable under their own power. Now, getting back to the medium part, I do believe what I do connect to, and my own personal theory, when I'm conversing with someone presumably that's passed, I have a feeling I'm connecting with a consciousness. Whatever that energy is, that if you want to call it the soul, the chi, whatever, when the body passes, because we all will someday, it turns into an energetic form. And if you want to call it a dimensional hop or plane, if you'll notice in religion, they always talk about planes of existence, be it Hindu, be it Buddhism, even Christianity talks about the seven heavens. What they're all referring to is a dimensional plane. And I firmly believe when our physical body dies, that energy that we have doesn't just dissipate, it changes to an energetic state. And what it does is it takes our consciousness now, our memory, and recreates a comfortable form for itself. So in other words, if you're the person that always liked to be at home sitting in your recliner, why wouldn't you be home sitting in your recliner? If you're the person, you happen to be in Hawaii where they have a multitude of beautiful beaches, wouldn't you like to spend eternity kind of like chilling on the beach? So whatever your consciousness kind of recreates your world. Now, when it comes to things like people have asked me, like, do you believe in hell? No, honestly. I do believe that people have to go over kind of like if you want to call it their negative or bad things that they do, and they have to pretty much look at them from an opaque point of view. They're not looking at them from their point of view. But I think if they can assimilate, if they can actually get to the point of understanding why they did something, I think maybe there's even enlightenment for them. And by the way, in case you're wondering, how long do I believe people hang around? I think until we forget that. Yeah. Why don't I pick up pilgrims? Why don't I pick up Roman foot soldiers? Why don't I pick up a Neanderthal? Because I think the people they were connected to, or the energy that was here, is no longer a conduit for them. My grandchildren or my great-great-grandchildren, they may know the name, but they don't have a personal connection to me. So am I going to stay here?
You're saying
yes,
you don't get entities that are been dead 100 years or 50 years?
Well, it's kind of like right now, if you said to me, can you pick up Elvis? I could probably, if I really pushed it, but if there's no personal attachment, why would Elvis bother? If you were Lisa Marie, if you were Colonel Parker, sure, maybe Elvis has some business with you. I had a lady that came to see me, and she said, I'm Elvis's #1 fan. I'm thinking, well, there must be 60 million of those. So is Elvis going to show? Well, think about it. Is Elvis going to? Is Elvis going to show up for this lady who's in Springfield, Massachusetts, because she's got every record he ever made? I don't think so. Now, could I? Believe it or not, you could. I possibly could if I truly wanted to. I'm sure I could go out in the ether and connect to his energetic trail, so to speak. But for the most part, I kind of don't bother someone unless there's need or unless they want to talk to me. If JFK comes through and wants to tell me about Marilyn Monroe, cool, I'll listen. But, for the most part, I'm not going to go out just because. But have I ever gotten people that just come through? Sure. On occasion I'll get, or if I'm somewhere, I'll pick up on something. But for the most part, mostly what I do is tailored to the person in front of me. Now, if you don't mind me going on a bit, one of the things when I first began in the business, I used to think I was actually reading the person sitting in front of me. I was picking up some form of their consciousness or their memory about the person. But that was disproved by the fact that I kept sometimes I would pick up things that they didn't know about the person, and they would go out and validate or confirm. We'd get a call. I'll give you a quick story. I had a lady that came to see me. Her dad came through, and he had on these beautiful shoes. He had on these nice dress pants, and he came through dancing. And the lady looked at me, and she said, "My father never danced." She said, "You're absolutely wrong." She said, "This is lovely, but..." And so I said to her, "Okay, that's lovely, have a nice day, blah, blah, blah." I never force anyone to listen. And about a week and a half later, the lady called up and she said, "I'm so sorry." And my wife, Virginia, said, "Why?" She said, "I told your husband he was crazy. And I went home and I told my sister, and she said, before you were born, Mom and Dad went out dancing every Friday night. He had special clothes. They would go out until he would actually go to the car and change because halfway through he danced so much he would sweat through his shirt." She said, "I owe him an apology." So again, when you're doing this, you don't get always instant validation. But after years and years of doing this, I've had so many people come back and go, when you told me that, didn't quite believe it. The hardest part, too, sometimes is when I get something and there's theoretically no proof in the beginning. A couple of years ago, it was 2 days before New Year's. And in New England, the weather is not always pleasant, okay? So we were sitting home snug in the house, and the fires were going and the dogs were sleeping. It's like 8:00 at night, which here was already dark. And we got a phone call from someone, and it was a young lady. And she said, "My brother is missing. He's been missing for 2 days. He's in the Connecticut woods in the state park. He's on his motocross bike. He fell off, and he keeps texting me he's hurt. Can you help us find him?" Well, wow. It's 8:00 at night, it's sleet out, and it's cold. So my wife and I put on our winter gear, and we climbed into my truck. We have a 4-wheel drive for the winter up here. And we're out in the middle of the Connecticut woods, and there's a lot of dirt fire roads, so we're driving in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden, we ran into a first responder out there, and come to find out, there's like 5,000 people roaming the woods looking for this kid. And I said to him, I said, "We need to find a place that connects the two ponds." There's like a little dam. And he said, "Well, I'll show you." He said, "That's only about a quarter of a mile from here." So now we're off on this tangent, driving through the middle of the night with this guy we don't know. And sure enough, we come to this little dam, and I found motorcycle tracks. And I said to him, I said, "Let's follow the tracks." And all of a sudden, the tracks stopped, and I said, "This is where they killed him." And he said, "No." He said, "This is a recovery mission. He's been texting. He's out here. He's hurt. We have to find him." And I said, "No, you don't get it. This is where they killed him. This is where they put the bike in the back of the truck. And this is where everything happened." Well, the next day they brought the dogs down. They have the search dogs. And they did the same thing. They stopped right at the same point. Well, 2 days went by, 3 days went by. And finally, his friend went to the police and admitted he killed him over a bad narcotics deal, and had put the bike in the back of the truck. Unfortunately, I didn't like being right. I wanted it to end the other way, where I was wrong, Like they found him, his leg was hurt, and they saved him. But the validation was there. Now, very recently, in that same area, we got a phone call, and luckily for us, it was a young lady, and she had disappeared in the evening, and the family thought, she was like 16, and the family thought she had been abducted, and they called us, and they said, what do you think? Do you think she's abducted? And I said, no. I said, there's something connected to a church. And they said to us, well, they're not church-going people. I said, look, I keep seeing a church. I keep seeing her. She's alive and well, and she's within a 20-mile radius of the house. Well, they thought I was insane. And then a day later, we got the phone call. They found her in an abandoned church. She had run away from home. So nice ending to the story. So for once, we actually found the living person. Now, the other part of that...
The guy that was texting...
Yes.
The texting, was that the guy who killed him?
Correct.
The text?
I'm sorry I didn't fill you in on that part. Yes, he had taken the young man's phone and was texting so it made it look like he was alive. So this way, I don't know how long he thought he would get away with it, but the guilt part got in, and finally, like I said, he had gone to the police, and they did solve that. So... unlike the TV where the DA, like I said, bursts into your door and said, we have to go find the perpetrator, it's a lot more subtle than that. And by the way, in case anybody wonders, what do you get paid for all that? Nothing.
Right.
That's a public service. That's okay. Are we still there? Where else?
I just sneezed.
Yeah, but
You can tell whether a woman's pregnant or not. My sister's a psychic, and that's one of her things. She can tell people are pregnant before they even know it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at that, except for with my own. Like, we just had a grandbaby, and I sure thought it was a boy, and it turned out to be a girl. By the way, I'm totally thrilled. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so you got a granddaughter. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
She's a gorgeous kid,
We have a missing woman here in Hawaii, in Maui. She's 35, and they think she went missing in the woods. And I don't know. She's not related to me, but I see her posters.
Yeah.
And I think she's still missing. Do you have any hints, any psychic hits?
Yeah. Embankment, tall growth on the side, a little bit of water on the bottom, but not a river, not a stream, but it's like a wet spot towards the bottom. Dense vegetation, tree lined on top, almost a path on top, and I do not see basically a perpetrator or a foul play. This looks literally like a physical issue where she went off the trail. So I don't know if they'll find her living or dead. I'm not connected that much. But I can see an area, and it almost looks like, it's funny because it's not wilderness, but it's densely grown in there. And I think someone's actually walked by the area and hasn't come across yet. But I got a feeling within the next 48 hours she'll be found.
Oh, that'd be interesting, yeah. Well, they have a $10,000 reward.
Well, it's P.O. Box 1496. So they can send her. I could use the money, okay? It'd be nice.
Yeah, it'd be great.
By the way, sometimes things are a little off the cuff, too. I do a monthly radio show in Springfield, and we've got a pretty good listenership out there. And it's an early morning show. It's a drive time show. And one morning a young lady called up, and she said, my boyfriend's been missing for, like 2 days now. And I said, don't worry, he'll pop up in the spring. And it just came out. And sure enough, he had fallen in the river and literally popped up in the spring. And it's, I didn't mean it to just slide out like that, but, it just caught me off guard. I hadn't had my coffee and my donut yet, It's kind of like it was early. So I just kind of let it rip, and it was good, But yeah, the popping up part, I didn't quite mean it that way, but yeah. So yeah, I have my moments,
You have moments.
That's the other thing. People a lot of times. Yes, dear.
Yeah, go ahead. That's your thing. Then
Oh,
I'll
no,
ask
no,
you a
no, no,
question.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
no. I've been rattling.
Well, I just wondered, see, when I was a kid, I could get these ghosts, and they were there in the house.
Yes.
They seem to be attached to the house. And what I got was this one was, he had been there 50, 100 years or something. The house was an 1840s farmhouse.
Yep.
And so, yeah, he had been there a long time. And he didn't like us being there. You know,
No.
So do you encounter those type of, ghosts that have taken over a place and they don't like what other people are living in their house?
Okay, there's
Situation.
two different things. One is when I talked about the spirit part, I'm connecting to what I consider a consciousness that's on a different level. What you're talking about would literally, it's almost like a spirit that's so physically attached. Now, whether he built the house, whether he lived there a long time, he believed that was his place, his space. So he was protecting, it's almost like he never, that soul or energetic part never left the property, so to speak. So in a case like that, if you want to call it, that would be, if you want to use the term a haunting, that's a whole different deal. Usually that will happen in a traumatic case, or like I said, if someone is, I don't want to say greedy, but if they firmly believe that this is my place, and it's almost like if they passed and they won't let go. That's when you get that kind of ghost phenomena. We just went on a lovely ghost hunt. Some friends of ours run a thing called Dining with the Dead, and they bring people. It's lovely. There's a place called the Public House up here, and it's Washington was there, Lafayette was there. All of these people have been there. So they hold a dinner, and they bring in like 60 people, and they give them all the meters, and they break them down into little groups, and they run around the building, and they get little bits of evidence here and there. And by the way, the ghosts at the Public House are very benign. I think they're there for dinner and brandy. So they're not about to hurt anything. But did they pick up anything? Yeah, they got, I'm sure you're familiar with EVPs, electronic voice phenomena.
Yes, right.
Well, my friends Tom and Arlene D'Agostino, they're the ghost hunter people. He's got like 12 books out on the subject. And they were gracious enough, like I said, to invite us for dinner and to partake in the evening. And I found it fun, and were there spirits there? Sure. And why were there spirits at the Public House? Because it's a lovely place to be. It's almost like you got social ghosts there.
Right.
They're wrapped in their time.
If you go there when they were alive, so they go when you're dead. Why not?
Yeah, and think of the time period that those ghosts are from in that building. If you found excuse me, these are mostly ghosts from the Revolutionary War period. And unlike the spirits that I connect with of the dearly departed or the nearly departed, these people, it's what's considered a residual. They're just there having dinner. They're there basically doing whatever it is they do. And for the most part, they don't even notice us. Once in a while they'll cross over and go like, what are you doing in my place? But yours are a little different. The ones you're talking about are a little more interactive. And it sounds very much like, they took so much ownership in that land that when new people came in, they were probably afraid you were going to change something. A lot of times when people remodel an old house, or if they, I'm in New England. Let's face it, we got a lot of houses from the 16th, 17th, 18th century. You start ripping down walls, you start tearing this out and that out. And sometimes the people that were here before don't exactly like it.
Right.
I've actually told people, like, maybe you should ask before you just rip the wall down. Like, do you mind if I take this down? It saves you a lot of trouble.
What about your house? Your house is 100 years old. Do you have anybody?
My house was a family house. I've owned it for a long time. Before that, my parents owned it. I'm seventh generation here. So.
Oh, like my house.
Yeah. So whoever is here is pretty welcome, so I wouldn't notice them. It's kind of like, there used to be an old Raid commercial, the bug spray. bugs move in, but they don't move out. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You know, the energy is still here. And for the most part, we welcome them. You know, look, I don't wake up with anybody standing next to the bed usually, and we don't get things flying across the room, which is lovely. But you can feel them. You know, they come through a different form. Sometimes it's clear sentient, sometimes it's clear audio. The sentient part, no one in my house smokes, but my father was an avid smoker, and he's been gone for many years, and we've remodeled this place. We've actually gutted it at one point, re-insulated, put new walls in, the whole 9 yards. And every now and then we'll be upstairs and you could smell like someone just lit up a Marlboro cigarette, and it's like, "Hi, Dad, how you doing?" You know?
Wow.
It doesn't last. It's only a few seconds, but you can tell he's there. Everybody almost has a different signature when they come through. The other day I had someone that came through and you could smell the perfume. You know, when you manifest at that rate, you're literally doing a trans-dimensional manifestation where you're bringing an essence with you. Matter of fact, the essence the lady brought with her was, it was like Jean Naté, which I haven't smelled since the 70s, but it was a fragrance that you couldn't miss, you know. And I said to the woman, I said, "Don't tell me every Christmas you bought Mom Jean Naté." And she's going, "Yeah." Like, "How did you know?" I said, "Well, I can smell it." And by the way, a lot of times a lot of the things that come through are associated with everyday life. As you well know, New England was a melting pot, and it was a haven for all kind of immigrant population. And a lot of times when people come through, I get people like in the kitchen and you can almost smell the food cooking, you know, so you kind of know what they're doing. And again, why would they be doing that? It's a comfort scenario. You know, people want to go through and they want to be in that comfort zone. So that's pretty much what I do. You know, and by the way, in case you're wondering.
What about the murders in case you're wondering, and then I wanted to ask about the murders this morning, but go ahead. In case I'm wondering.
In case you're wondering who my clientele is. We have a very mixed clientele. I can basically read for anyone from the unemployed to what I call Nob Hill, so to speak. I have some clients from the World Wrestling Federation. I have some clients in California in theatrical stuff. Even have some rocker clients. And then we've got like everyday moms, dads, people, and, you know, because people always wonder, like, who comes to see a psychic or who comes to see a medium? And pretty much everybody, you know. The big thing is I have a rapport and we have a good reputation and I am trusted, which is probably the nicest part for me. You know, I've created a bond with the general public. And by the way, there are times when I cannot connect. And yeah, you know, because people think like on television, if you watch the Long Island Medium, she connects every time, all the time. And that's really good editing on the TV part. But last week I had a lady who came and her attitude was negative to begin with. She came because a friend told her she should. I knew who she was looking for, but he didn't even seem to want to talk to her. She was looking for her husband, and I think he was kind of happy he was on the other side. And in the end, I told her, you know, instead of taking payment, go take your daughter out for dinner, go buy a pair of shoes, do whatever you want to do. But, you know, you know, is it worth my loss of...
show up.
Yeah. You know, I told her where there was a good... I told her where there was a good restaurant with Mai Tais. It's not.
Did you ever get celebrities come to you?
I have. Yes. I have several. One of them is connected to the Marvel industry, so that's kind of cool. I have a couple of
Stan Lee?
No, there's been a few. These are the older Marvel people. I'd love to talk to Stan Lee. You kidding me? He hasn't come yet.
Stan, show up.
Yeah, I think Stan was pretty cool, you know. So yeah, do I pick up people? To a point, like I said. It's kind of funny because one of the things is when you do this long enough, you actually take on characteristics sometimes of the person. So yeah, if anybody really cool wants to come through, you know, it'd be kind of neat to be Richard Burton for 20 minutes or, you know, I wouldn't mind that, you know, like, but yeah, most of the time though, I deal with the everyday public. Like you said, I get people that are looking for that missing piece, or they're looking, like I said, a lot of times people come because no matter if you do hospice, if you take care of someone, no matter how good of a job you do, you always think you missed something. And
wait.
Yeah.
Gary, wait.
Go ahead. Sure.
Speak up, hon.
I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead, please.
No, it's go ahead. What would you do if you were Richard Burton? What would you experience if you are Richard Burton? You opened that one. What would you do, Richard?
I'd probably like call somebody quick and do like a 20-minute version of Hamlet. You know, I don't know. It just seemed like a fun guy to be, you know. He seemed like he had a good life. He had a fun time. Wouldn't mind being here for 20 minutes, you know, or an hour. There's a lot of people I think I'm a big Tesla fan. I'd love to talk to Tesla for an hour or two, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I want to find out who he was channeling and how he found it. Wouldn't mind shooting. Yeah, think about it, you know. Wouldn't mind shooting the breeze with Einstein for a little while, you know. It'd be kind of nice, you know. Gandhi would be kind of cool.
Over here in when I was at Oahu in Hawaii, there was a man named Arthur Pacheco, and he would channel Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, cool.
And he apparently sounded like him. So Arthur is dead now, and Arthur Conan Doyle is dead.
Yes.
So I found a site where Arthur Conan Doyle was speaking, and I compared it to Arthur Pacheco channeling Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And then there was another person who brought through Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. And it was amazing the similarities in the voices.
Well,
it was
you
like
have,
as if that person actually came through. Yeah.
You have to remember Arthur Conan Doyle was one of the founding fathers in England of, I can't remember the name of the organization, but they were the group that kind of like got dissed by Harry Houdini. Houdini was the great fraudulent medium breaker, and Arthur Conan Doyle was always looking for proof of the other side. So is Edison, by the way. Edison actually created his chronograph machine to pick up spirit voices. That's him now.
Did he succeed? There he is.
That's the spirit of Revolution Radio speaking to us.
No, that's my other phone. I'm going to shut it down. Okay, so anyway, there's a whole archive of all these voices recorded, and some of them, they have actual recordings of them during their lifetime. Some they go back like to, you know, some queen in the 1800s or something. You don't always have a recording of the voices, but anyway, there's a whole website on that.
Well, the other thing is that it also comes with a physical manifestation. Now, I do not create ectoplasm like in the old days. You know, those were the stage mediums. But what actually happens is sometimes the facial muscles will, if I say contort, that sounds weird, but it's almost like you take on a little bit of the facial characteristics of the person you're reading for. In other words, yeah, because I've actually had a few people that get a little spooked on occasion. And it doesn't happen all the time. It depends on how well you're connected to the person. You know, if they're really in, because sometimes people jump in and they're in for the hour. And suddenly you're using their mannerisms and you're using their phrasing, and that's when it gets really cool. You know, my favorite, the other day I had a gentleman, and his daughter that came to see me, and this guy, evidently he missed his wife, and the wife came through. He sat down. She said, take the stupid ring and the chain out of your pocket and show the man he's not a fake. So he kind of like put his hand in the pocket, took the ring and the chain out. And then she went on to tell him, she said, it's a god darn good thing that I taught you how to cook because you'd be dead by now. But that's who she was. You know, she came across it. And by the way, that's why he came, because he actually missed her, you know. The big thing was he needed a reason. He was probably in his mid to late 60s, and he couldn't come up with a reason to be here anymore. And she kind of read him the riot act about the people that he had in his life and the fact that he was that lucky that he has people. You know, it's kind of like, well, you're being selfish. So now, whether he goes, yeah, you know, I mean, can you imagine the devastation in the family if he decides, like, okay, I just don't want to be anymore? So now they've lost mom and dad. So, you know, she came to kind of kick his butt in a nice way and tell him, like, knock it off.
Yeah. Well, hold on. We'll be back in 5 minutes. That's our break. So we'll see you in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Oh, be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do you do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos, and I'm your host. Woo! A lot of feedback. Janet here, Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha, Lessin. And I think I'm going to have to hang up and call back in so I get the clear channel here. But and our producer is Thomas Becker. And we're coming back after the commercial break, and I'd like to remind everybody, and our guest is Gary McKinstry, who is a psychic medium. I'd like to remind everybody to please go to the donation button on Revolution Radio, and please make your donation, because we really, really need your donation to keep afloat here and keep bringing you these shows. Thomas Becker, how are we doing with our fundraising for the month?
We have got 2026. We still need 524, so please donate, people. We'd sure appreciate it.
Not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to hang up real quick and come back in, but Sasha takes over in my absence, and we're going to talk about the tour on the other side, the triple murder, and found money. But what do you want to talk about? And I'll be right back. I'm going to hang up.
First, I don't know if the listeners can tell, but Janet's been studying yodeling, and she That was a yodel announcement, is what it sounded like. Okay, so I know the question she wants to quiz you with is the other side.
Yes, the other side. Interestingly enough, what I perceive, what comes through most of the time is, it's undramatic. Think of most of the things that we like as human beings. Think of your comfort zones. Like I said, if you're the person who loved the beach, why wouldn't you spend your day at the beach? Of course, I did have someone ask me, you mean mom's stuck on the beach? No, mom's not stuck on the beach. But it's kind of like, well, you know what I mean? People take things literally.
Yeah.
Like, I can see mom on the beach. Well, that means she's there forever? No. She can go home at night. She can go get a hot dog. Life is good. But we seem to recreate things, like I said, that we are comfortable with. Now, personally, when I get to the other side, I'm probably going to go tripping in the universe, which you could do, but a lot of these, a lot of it has to deal, again, with the personal energy and people around us. By the way, just to let you know, do I believe in a supreme being? I believe in a supreme consciousness out there somewhere. And I think at some point when your vibration raises to a certain level, I don't know if we all meld together, but I think all these consciousness form something. Now, I can't prove anything, but is there an existence to something more supreme in our universe, or not even the universe, more in the cosmos? Got a feeling, I look at it more from a physics principle. There's got to be some kind of energy that creates all this somewhere. I have trouble picturing it as a big guy or a big woman. Like, is it George Burns? Is it some dude with a big beard? Is it Whoopi Goldberg? I don't know.
Sasha likes that.
Well, think of it. You pass to the next thing, you're standing there next to Whoopi, and drinking a slushie. I don't know, but I do. I guess if that's what you want to perceive it as, it could be, but a lot of what...
Do your entities report about what they're seeing? Do they ever tell you, what they're getting, what it's like for them?
They seem to know everybody around them to a great degree. A lot of times people seem to be in family units, so it's not a person. You can get Uncle Harry and cousin this and blah, blah, blah. And, we seem to group off into comfort groups. A lot of times, even friends. I've had people come through as friends. It's not just the one kind of deal. There's no one size fits all other side. And I do not confuse it with what people consider the angelic. Because every now and then people will go like, well, are they angels? No. If you want to get into things on that level, something that would be considered angelic would be a higher dimensional being. And they're not human. They're not an entity like, they're not a human form. What we perceive as an angelic form is actually an ascended or a higher being. So, it gets a little crazy. Everybody thinks like Miracle on 42nd on what is that? I can't think of the name of it now, but yeah, like, oh, an angel gets his wing, the bell rings, cool. It doesn't quite work that way. Now, that consciousness that people are when they transfer or change, can they perceive what's here? Yes, as much as you or I can perceive them. In other words, if you can connect to that side, yes, they can connect to here and see to a degree, but they're not watching you 24 hours a day. That would be pretty boring, But the deal is, if something large were to happen in the family unit or something, dynamic happens, are they going to perceive some of that? Sure. Sometimes they seem to know about events that are taking place. Sometimes they seem to come through with words of inspiration. Not all the time, but sometimes, depending on the person. So is there that consciousness that also connects here, even when we're not connected to them? It seems to be. I've often wondered, God forbid, when I pass, I go to the other side. Am I going to have to be a medium for the living? You know, like I'm going to be on the other side with the dead people going like, I'm talking to your cousin. You know, I'm hoping not. But like, I want to retire when I get to that point. Yeah. You know, I'm going to be out in the woods chasing moose, okay? I don't want to be.
Well,
think
it
about
seems okay. I've had some people come to me when they're dead, and they just come to me.
Sure.
And I've worked with them, and I end up doing psychotherapy for them.
Yeah.
Because they don't like being dead, or they want to. And so, and I go, okay. And at one point, I said to Sasha, I said, okay, I got to stop this. This is exhausting because I don't get to sleep. They come at night most times, but I'm relaxed and the portal's open. Then I asked them, I go, well, why are you coming to me? I mean, why not Gary McKinstry, right? Why are you coming to Janet Lessin?
Trust me, they come to a lot of people.
Yeah, and they say, well, because we can see that you see us looking at you.
Correct.
So maybe you don't get to retire. Yeah.
I hope so.
I kind of put up a barrier, but every once in a while, some of them are so powerful. They just, they do come to the foot of my bed, and it's like, oh, come on, really? You've been doing this all my life. Come on. But I say, it's closed. We're closed for business, no more.
Look, for the most part in public, if I'm out for the evening and we're out to dinner, I really try hard not to see anybody. On occasion they sneak in. One day, Virginia and I, we had an appointment in a nearby city, so we had to stop, and we stopped at a fast food place just to grab something. And I'm sitting there and I'm laughing, and she goes to me like, what are you seeing? And across me, a living person was there, a nasty little woman, and nothing was right. She didn't like her food. She didn't like this. Her friend was with her. She was telling her all about it. And next to her was this little man. And I could see his little ears sticking out, and he was bald, and he looked at me and said, I'm dead. And he was smiling. And Virginia said, are you going to go over and tell her that her husband's there? I said, no, he looks too happy. So I wasn't about to ruin his day. Well, yeah, they sneak in.
But he was dead, and he still chose to be beside her while she was complaining. So isn't that interesting? About the things you can do while you're dead.
Yeah, but as much as he seemed happy that he's there and she's here, I think he was waiting for her,
Yeah.
It's not, sometimes perception is not quite what it seems. But he just seemed like, it's more like I think he was enjoying the rest. Like she'll be here soon enough. And, I'm taking a break right now, so it's good. You also got to remember, on television, when the medium walks up to somebody's table, like in a restaurant, they have a camera crew with them. So, of course, if I come up to you with a camera crew and say, well, your brother is here or whatever, I'm going to be pretty receptive. Now, if I walk up to you in the middle of a restaurant, you're eating dinner and go like, your brother's here, you might call the manager and have me removed. So, I've learned to be a little more judicious about that. A lot of times I watch people that are new at this, and they have to talk to everybody about everybody all the time. It's like they can't even hold a conversation without telling somebody like who's there. And don't get me wrong, I enjoy it. But it's kind of like I try to keep it when we shut down. As you put it, when you said you block things, to a great degree, I kind of put up, the old shield out there, and try really hard not to let people, I shouldn't say let them in, but I don't want to do this 24 hours a day, I happen to like to, I like to sleep, and I like my morning coffee without somebody looking at me, So I try real hard to balance everything. And by the way, that's kind of that's the part where when people say like, it must be tough to have a real life. No, I mean, I can go to the grocery store. I can do things, I block out things pretty well. And by the way, for your listening audience, if they want to connect, it's not all that hard. Because a lot of people think like it takes years of training. The biggest thing is putting your mind in the proper frame, or creating a space so you can do this in your mind. Once you've created that space and the portal, the doorway, whatever you want to call it, once you've opened that, then all kind of wonderful things can come through. But just remember to put a secondary portal in so they can leave. You know, it's nice to, nice to invite them, but, you know, at some point, it's kind of like, you know, the old thing where the bartender says, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. That's kind of the idea. You know,
right.
You know, in psychotherapy, we just have a voice that reminds them, you know, you don't need to go any deeper right now. This is enough for now. You can stop this whenever you choose.
And that's a wonderful thing. You know, the other part is sometimes on occasion, I don't use it too much anymore, but I am a clinical hypnotherapist. And one of the things there is you're pretty much trained to watch respiration. You're trained to watch trauma. I don't really want to bring people to a place where they're going to relive a trauma and have to go through it again. Even if I give them a safe place to do it from, is that the best thing always to do? Sometimes it is if they have to release it. But on a regular basis, you know, am I going to bring someone into a place and go like, oh, okay, you know, well, let's go here because there was a traumatic event in your life and let's relive it. Sometimes if we can unlock it and see it from a third person perspective, that's okay. But, you know, so I'm very careful when I do things like that. A lot of people are very fascinated by past life regressions. And even with that, you want them to see it or visualize it, but you don't necessarily want them to relive the trauma. You know, it's like, great, if we can unlock it. Yeah. You know. Yeah,
one of the things that we do in our hypnotic regressions, we go down an elevator to a floor that represents your age, and there's two doors there. In one door you can just observe what's going on. In the other door you can re-experience it, and you get to choose. You just build in stuff like that, and it's really it's wonderful. People can really access an awful lot.
Well, what I do is so often I'll give them a theater, like a movie theater, and you can watch the story of your life, so to speak, which again, now you're in a safe environment. Now you're protected from the traumatic effect, and you can even look away if you want, you know. But again, there are times when people need to relive something, and a lot of times I'll ask them to bring a guest with them for their own comfort, you know, because we live in a strange world these days, and you know, again, if it makes them feel comfortable, I'll tell them, you know, you can bring someone and you know they can sit in on the session. So this way, again, it's a comfort kind of deal, and I'll usually have enough cues for the person so they don't go under with them, you know. So but I'm not fond of that part of the business anymore. You know, it's not something I really relish. I'd rather do like the medium part I find fascinating.
Anyway, thanks for the question. That's wonderful. I love it. Thank you. Good. Thank you.
Yes,
You're welcome.
I want to ask a question. You have me, Janet Lessin, and Dr. Sasha Lessin, and Thomas Becker. Do you see anybody from the other side that has any messages for any of us?
There's a rather gruff man around Thomas, and he's in what looks like work pants. Older gentleman, feels like he's been around for quite a while. And by the way, he'd be pretty proud that the kid makes a living on his own, that he doesn't ask anybody for anything. And basically, I got to tell him he's not wasting his time, and that I'm proud of him. Again, older gentleman. When I say older, I'll give him, he looks like more like 70s, early 80s. And it feels like upper respiratory distress with him, so he passed probably from something either heart or chest related. So I'm not sure if this is a grandparent. I'm not sure who he is in the chain of things. And he ain't from there. So what I'm getting at, you guys happen to be somewhere, but wherever he's from feels like he didn't migrate to there. He's somewhere, it feels almost more like back here. So that's connected to Thomas. And interestingly enough,
does that resonate?
It could be my father. I mean, I'm not sure.
You know,
but he was in California the last I knew before he died.
He's in what looks like work pants. You know, the Dickies looking work pants?
He was a truck driver.
Yep, plain looking shirt. And by the way, be proud of the fact that you don't ask for anybody for anything. You just go out and get what you need. And I don't mean that in a negative way. By the way, for a truck driver, he's an awfully intelligent truck driver. It's just that sometimes I think he thought using his physical form was probably more profitable than using the mental part. But he's a pretty smart man. So,
he did what he loved. That's what I do.
Yep. And by the way, there is a bit of an apology with him, and the apology is not because he did anything wrong, but because he kind of lost touch for a while with something, and it feels a little bit like let you know that there was a little bit of an apology about losing time. So what that is, I don't know. I'm going to leave it with you.
We didn't speak for like 25 years.
That's got to be what the apology is for. And by the way, if he's apologizing, believe me, this is a big deal for him because this is not a dude that apologizes easy, okay? I hate to use the term he's a manly man, but he took the John Wayne playbook. Good, bad, right, wrong, and my way. But again, does not make him a bad guy. It just means this is kind of like who he was and the way it was. But I need to tell you, even though he never really got to tell you, he'd be really proud of you. And I got to tell you that part. So anyway, no problem. Now, I don't know, Janet, where the younger energy comes in with you, but I'm picking up something it's not mom or grandma or something. I don't know if this is friend or what, but it's a female form, and it feels like gone before I should be, and it feels kind of like I kind of got cheated a little bit because I passed before I had everything finished. And she's somehow connected to you, and I'm supposed to say thank you. I don't know what you did for her, but there's a thank you that goes with this. It's almost like you helped her in some form. But again, when I say young, I do not mean teenager, but a younger energy, because she feels kind of like left here way too fast. And by the way, her white blood cell count was way off, so I can tell you that much. So anyway, how's your
that might have been Claudia, who died at the river coming to the house. She got caught up in a flash flood. She was very young energy, but she came to me after she died. I saw her a couple times, but I haven't seen her in a while. But I just got the impression that she never quite left because this is where she really enjoyed herself on this property.
It's kind of like still connected. I don't know why the white blood cell count would have been off a little bit. That usually tells me either an infection or something was a little bit wrong.
It was Carolina. Janet, it was Carolina. It was Carolina. Her blood cells were like that.
Oh, Carolina. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And there was a thank you that went with her. So I got to tell you, like, hats off to you. There's a thank you for making something better than it was. Unfortunately, we can't save everyone, and sometimes we can't fix everything. But I think she would actually have realized that. But you did your part, and she was pretty happy for it. So this is kind of nice.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody there for Sasha?
Yeah, but it's really funky because the dude's covered in books. Look, I got the guy sitting there, and I feel like I'm in an old-fashioned chair, almost like an easy chair, and I got books on the left of me, books on the right of me, and it feels like I'm never going to get through.
Smith.
Yep, never going to get through all of these books.
It's Mike Smith, I know that. It's Mike Smith, my professor.
It's interesting, he passed the way he wanted to. I know that sounds weird, but it's kind of like, it feels almost like I passed the way I wanted to. Almost like I was either in the right place or it's okay the way I went. And he's got his books with him. And it's funny, there are stacks on. It's kind of like his version of heaven. Like I said, I got a good light, I'm in a comfortable chair, and I got all of these books, and nobody's bothering me right now. And it's not that bad. And by the way, if you need him, he said, give him a call. By the way, I don't mean a literal call, but if you need the inspiration, if you can't figure it out, he said, evidently he's still connected on your line. So if you get this flash of intuition and you don't know where it came from, just say, hey, thank you, Mike. Okay?
Okay. Wow. Far out. That's wonderful. Wow. His notes that all he worked for years and years got ruined in a boat trip. And he said it was the best thing that ever happened to him is he had to think and organize things so that if that's a picture of me too, the archetype that Mike represents is active in me. I stay up all night, and there was this earthquake, and all the books fell down one night, etc. It's amazing. What a resonance! Thank you.
You're welcome. He chooses to be around you, and by the way, interestingly enough, he's not considering you the student. So even though he was your professor, it's kind of like you guys are on equal footing now.
Cool.
Well, I would say that's true. I think Sasha might have surpassed him.
Well, don't tell him. Don't tell him that.
The information.
We don't want to rile him on the other side, okay? We'll just say he's a.
That's true. That's true.
You know, like we don't want
to balance pride and humility. A centered person balance. Yes. The two.
By the way, balance seems to be the biggest thing in the universe. If you can come up to a point of finding balance, whether it's energetically, personally, or whatever, that's pretty much what people strive for. And by the way, it's kind of funny because there's a lot of people that seem to enjoy the imbalance. I don't know, but in my own personal life, I seem to like things to kind of balance out a little bit, and it's nice. So you're on the right path with the balance part with people. That, and I'm really thrilled to hear how much you self-empower people. That's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want a bunch of people addicted to talking to me every day. So you.
Well,
it's so empowering to just be trapped in your primary sub-self all the time, and to realize you have all these aspects and they can connect and resonate with aspects of everybody and everything. And there you are. Here you are.
Well, moving on, I know I kind of led you a little bit earlier and mentioned found money.
Yes, you're going to talk about that.
One of the things that we and it's not my primary mission, but I had a gentleman, and it's kind of funny, he was an eminent doctor, so he couldn't come to see me, but he sent his wife. And the wife came for a reading. The uncle had passed away. The uncle had lived in New York in a brownstone. He was the only living heir, so the uncle left him the brownstone. So the wife came to see me to find out, should we just sell the building and get rid of it, or should we take the time to go down there and look at the building and see what's there? As far as he was concerned, we should just sell it. And she said, no, I'm going to go. Oh, so she came to see me. And the uncle came through, and the first thing he showed me was a stack of classic Playboys from the 70s. And I said, I don't think those are worth going there for, because they're really not that collectible. But I said, he's showing me pieces of tri-folded paper on the floor, and they have a picture of a waterfall on them. And he said, there's enough here to pay for the kids' college. So she went home and diligently reported this to the husband, and he still wasn't convinced. As far as he was concerned, we're just going to get a real estate agent, sell the place, and that's the end of that. Well, about 2 weeks later, the place was broken into, and the thieves took all the furnishings and, the old TV and the living room set and all this stuff. So the insurance company asked them to go down. They went down there and scattered on the floor were all these trifold pieces of paper with a picture of a waterfall on them, just like I said. And underneath it said Niagara Electric Company stock, and it was there to the tune of $110,000. They liked me after that. By the way, just in case you're wondering, I didn't get even a gift card out of that one. You think at least they could have got me a nice dinner card someplace, but. So that was one. And over the years, recently, I had we were doing a large event, and a lady came up, and during it, her son was talking about something buried in the yard. And it turns out her son had purchased bars of gold. He thought it was a great investment and buried them right near the house. And then unfortunately he passed in a horrendous accident. And her only question was, where do we dig? Well, you got to remember in New England, in about February, the ground's frozen for about 3 feet. And I said, as soon as the ground thaws, dig by the deck in the back of the house, because he buried him like right near the deck. Unfortunately, we haven't got an ending to that story yet, because sometimes when people find things, they don't always call back. But actually, by her not calling, by her not calling back, I kind of got a feeling they're in the market to be selling gold bars right now. But so far in the last few years, Virginia and I are up to about $220,000 worth of money that was left and hidden in places that we found. So we're doing pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah. You know.
Do you ever get any kickback from finding money? Do clients ever send you money from finding money?
Once in a while we'll get dinner out or something like that, but no, there's no great monetary reward for it. When it comes to cash flow, people get really crazy. There's a factor that kicks in, and that's fine. If they've got it and they're happy with it, God bless them and let them enjoy it. That means grandma, grandpa scrimped and saved, put it away, and they wanted Junior or whoever to have it. So I'm perfectly fine.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like it wasn't left for me, so I don't mind. And you know.
So how do you do this? How do you make a living being a psychic?
I'm busy. Usually we take Mondays off, which we will not work. We do not answer the phone unless it's one of the kids with an issue. But the rest of the week, you know, I'm pretty busy from 10 a.m. until sometimes 8, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, like everybody else, we have our slow time. You know, like 4th of July week, we pretty much take a vacation like everybody else, because in Christmas week we're off. But the rest of the time, the phone rings. You know, it's not unusual. We'll get anywhere from 10 to 17 calls a day, and some of them are panic calls. Some are, yeah. So it's not like I'm sitting here waiting for work. The other part is out here, like I said, I'm on, if you want to call them mainstream radio. I like this. This is fun. This is like pirate radio. But I'm also on like Cumulus. I've been on iHeartRadio and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, on a monthly basis, I'm probably talking to anywhere from 120 to 180,000 people. So if I get like 5% of them that call and are looking for private sessions, we stay pretty active. Plus we do, like I said, a lot of large events. We do 25 fundraisers a year. We do everything from Relay for Life to the Cat Connection, which is a cat shelter, to every Autism Speaks. We do fundraisers for a lot of different people. So what that does is when you've got 100 people you're working with or 200 people, you're generating a lot of interest. You know, those are very small. Those are like the 1 minute connections. Because if I got 100 people, you can only read for so many in an evening. And what happens is I'll give somebody something, and if there's enough validation and enough meaning, they're going to come back and talk to me again, because now they want to know more about it. So it's kind of like, I'll use the term self-promotion. They're getting something out of it. The organization's getting something out of it. And I'm getting something out of it by connecting with them. We have an event coming up next month, and it's for a group called the Pink Hippies. And what the Pink Hippies are, it's a group of people, and they're a nonprofit, and they provide services for people with breast cancer. They'll go out there and they'll do reflexology. They'll do massage for free. They'll help you get a wig. If you need transportation, they do that. They'll get you to the doctors. They'll sit with you through chemotherapy. And they do this literally nonprofit. They're totally 100% self-supporting and funded. They're not through the American Cancer Society. So I'll do a fundraiser for them, and all the money goes directly to the organization. So they'll be able to help more people, you know, get better and heal. Mm-hmm. And then even if, unfortunately, because not everyone's going to heal, but even if they can't, at least they'll have compassion and they'll have someone with them through those times too. So those are the kind of things. That's how we stay busy. Like I said, we connect to so many people that, on a weekly, a daily a basis, plus I read for all kind of different organizations and groups. I have a group of.
So how long are your readings? Do you have like a set time or like?
I can go for an hour.
Your house or?
Right. I have a studio here, and if someone comes for a private reading, whether it's one person, two person, or a family group, I can last for 45 minutes to an hour before my concentration lets go.
Right.
Do you remember John Edwards?
Yes, I do.
A little bit.
I worked with him a couple of times, and he's a really great guy. And he always said they're pulling back. I'm on the theory that it's our energy that dissipates, not the spirits, because you can only hold a concentration so long. You can only stay focused to that degree in one area for so long. And then it's kind of like, at that point, I know enough. I can tell when I'm falling apart. And I can stay locked in. You pretty much feel like, okay, you're fading. And when that happens, that's pretty much when I end the reading because, I'm not going to give them, I don't want to give people hokey pokey. I'm not going to say, well, the angels are here or your guardians are here. They came because they wanted to talk to a departed loved one. And once I get through that part, I'll pretty much, I'll let them know, like, okay, this is as far as we can go. I've given you everything I can. And that's about an hour, The group setting, we do 2 hours. And after the first hour, I usually take a break. And we wrap it up a lot of times with questions and answers. I find those exhilarating. And I can go out for 2 hours and I entertain, and it's fun. Those are great nights. Luckily for me.
So those are in person, or do you get people that call you, or do Skype or Zoom, or
all of the
in person, or
all of the above? I recently did a Skype call from Germany. A lot of times people will. It's just a regular phone reading. I like the in-person stuff because you're getting direct energy from the person. It's almost like they're the antenna. They're calling in their people. So that works real good to bounce off of them. But yeah, I've done all of the above. It's not unusual. It's really fun. I had a group of people in from Mexico. I had a group from Mexico a little while ago, and they brought an interpreter with them. And the fun part was, I've never been to Mexico, so I don't have a reference point. But yet, I was getting this piece and that piece, and, the father was talking about this, and it was kind of cool because as they're interpreting, it was fun to judge the reactions of the people I was working with. So sometimes it's really neat when you're with an entirely different culture and now you're picking things up because you're going with them on this little journey. Plus in New England, we have a pretty strong Asian population in pockets too. So again, sometimes you're doing a lot of cross-cultural readings, which is kind of neat. And just to let you know, it doesn't matter. Doesn't seem to matter what your religious background or belief system is. I've had priests come through. I've had nuns come through. I've had Buddhist people, Muslim people. It doesn't matter.
Right.
If someone's open enough to come, their people are going to show up no matter. It doesn't matter what you believe in or how you get there. It's the fact that we all have a common bond. And I like that part.
Yeah.
I'm a non-discriminatory.
My sister-in-law goes to Japan, and they eat this up in Japan. A lot of people do the circuit. They go over to Japan, and they'll have audiences with thousands of people in them because they don't have enough of that over there. So,
hey, I've read for gang.
You might be.
Yeah. Somebody wants to send me a plane ticket, I'll go. I've read for gangbangers before. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, I had a dude that came through. His name was Ricky, okay? And he got shot on his doorstep. And his mother was sitting in front of me. And Ricky's language was not too good. It was rather profane. And I said to her, I said, do you want me to tell you like I'm hearing it? And she said, yeah, and I did. And she said, that's my son. I'm thinking, you must be so... But Ricky came through in a blaze of glory. You know, he had his 9mm with him and his tattoos and the whole bit, you know. But he has a mom. You know, he has a mom. He had people he loved. He had people he cared for. You know, everybody's the same.
You said today you worked on a murder.
Yes.
So what do you do when you get somebody that comes to you with a murder situation?
There was a lady that came to see me, and her brother and her 2 nephews. The brother's wife had a mental imbalance, and she was a nurse, so she drugged the children and she drugged the husband and then stabbed them to death. What the woman needed to know, she kind of knew the detail to a degree, but she couldn't understand the wife's reasoning. And I had to explain to her that there was a chemical imbalance and that there was like a duality in the woman. Because she said she was always so nice. And I explained to her how between stress and almost like PTSD, that the woman went off the edge. There was too many things to handle. And she thought the only way out of it to protect them was, unfortunately, to murder them. And then she took her own life. You know, it sounds really odd, but in the woman's own twisted way, she thought she was saving them from something. What she was saving from, I don't know, okay? But the lady needed to understand because she could never wrap her head around it. You know, she didn't know if it was an act of vengeance. She didn't know, you know, like what it was. Because this was a husband who was probably like maybe 40 and an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old that she murdered. So it was a horrific crime. Unfortunately, when you're doing this, sometimes you either get the visual or part of it. And that one beat the heck out of me. That was earlier this afternoon. Luckily for me, that was like my last person of the day because I wouldn't have had time to recoup for anybody else after that, you know. And by the way, not recoup psychically. That's recoup mentally and physically myself, you know, because if you're watching a horrific scene like that, it has to affect you to a degree. You know, I'm not made out of iron. Even though you know you're separate from it, you know, there's still a psychological impact for a while. I found
have you ever solved a murder where they didn't know who did the murder?
I've got one we've worked on for years. We've actually talked to the police. We've talked to detectives. Right now, the gentleman who did this is actually in jail for another crime. And the only thing missing is one piece of forensic evidence. And I'm still pretty sure that's going to turn up. But we pinpointed him. They pinpointed him. We've seen the case files, the whole 9 yards. And I actually know, not personally, but I know who the murderer is. And I knew the girl that was murdered. And yeah, this had been reopened. It was a cold case and it got reopened. Oh, sorry. I don't mean to digress, but last winter we also worked on a murder that was on Dateline from 10 years ago. They couldn't find the girl's body in Texas after 10 years. And luckily enough, we pinpointed the empty lot where she was. So yes, I worked on a few murders. Not my favorite thing to do. Yeah. You know, would I say like this is my passion? Not really. You know, I just as soon connect to somebody that, you know, passed in a less dramatic way, because murder is such a violent waste, you know.
Yeah, it is.
You know, you have people that are fighting for life and clinging to life, and you got people that are struggling to help other people. If I can fulfill their stuff, but the murder end of it is usually because it's trying to get closure for the family. That's the whole deal.
Right.
You know.
Do you ever get the person murdered coming to you and telling you?
Yeah. Yeah, I get this one girl. She was murdered in 1973. And they could never nail the guy, and every so often she keeps coming back. Since 1973.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. and usually once or twice a year she'll pop in, and it's almost like we're old friends now because I know her. And I always feel bad because we could never finish this yet. So there are some unfinished things, you know. Someday when I sit down and write the book, that's probably going to be a large part of it. But, you know, by the way, on Amazon, there's a book called The Dragonfly Spirit. It was recently released. And about half of the book details some very in-depth reading I did. It was a lady that came to see me. I didn't know she was writing the book at the time. And she asked permission, and she had literally recorded all of the readings. And almost all of them are in the book. So if anybody really wants to see how in-depth it gets, pick up a copy of The Dragonfly Spirit. It's a good book.
Her name is Susan Bruno?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow,
I'll grab that.
You got fast fingers.
Yes. No, I'm psychic now.
Yeah.
No, I looked that one up.
Susan's nice.
Sasha, what would you like to say? Add comments?
Okay, yeah.
We're running out of the clock here pretty soon here.
Okay. So one of the ways that I find that I can always end fatigue in relating is to interact rather than just talk all the time myself. So turn it into something exciting and real. And if you were, I have one for you. If you were, projecting into the future, what kind of world do you see for your grandchildren when they grow up? What's that like when you put yourself there? What's your vision of the world of your grandchildren as adults?
Ooh, that's a heavy duty question. Wow. And by the way, it's not Armageddon. I can tell you that. I don't go towards. Yeah, I don't go towards the negative. I firmly believe at some point in my vision of that future, I hate to use the term, is a little more ecologically sound than we are now. I honestly believe my grandchildren will see a tipping point where maybe because the people have to, but things are going to be a little cleaner and greener. And I really hope that what I'm looking at is more independence for people. So yeah, I have a pretty nice vision of the future for them. I don't believe it's bleak. I don't believe it's desolate. By the way, I love Mad Max movies, but I don't believe in that ending. I kind of have the belief that at some point there's that turning point and we'll figure it out and the kids will do it. Maybe not this generation. My grandchildren, maybe. This generation hasn't quite seen everything yet, and they've had a fairly comfortable life. But in another generation, I think you'll see things change in a positive note. So, yeah, that's my vision of the future. Not a bad one.
Yeah.
Of course, you guys happen...
I keep envisioning it.
Yeah. You happen to be in a rather idyllic place.
Oh, yeah. We love it here. I was looking on the mainland. It's like, wow, it's cold there. What's your temperature like where you're at today? You're wearing shirts and long sleeves. Yeah. Great.
Yesterday was 83 degrees and today's 60. My wife and I were up in Maine last week, and I get up in the morning and it was still snowing. So, yeah, it's not exactly totally warm here yet. The 83 degrees was the first day we had that was an anomaly this year. It's been cold, it's been damp, it's been everything you could dream of. So it's been quite unusual. Our trees finally have leaves on them again. Let's put it that way.
So the weather is that typical or your pattern is changing? The weather pattern is changing.
Our patterns have changed dramatically. For us, winter really starts now in almost the end of January, where it used to start in November or December, and now it's running until almost like late March and early April. So everything is shifted. Winter used to end almost at the end of February, but now the pattern's changed. The Gulf Stream has changed. We don't get as much snow, but we get ice now compared to what we used to. So we've been getting you can see the climatic impact. It almost seems like the jet stream is going higher up into Canada and then slamming down on us. Everybody thinks global warming. Wow. Yeah. People think of global warming as an all-around greenhouse effect. But what it does is it actually changes the stirring currents. And of course, and then when summer finally hits, the Gulf Stream has changed. So now we have a lot of great whites coming up the coast. Cape Cod used to be a cute little place for people to go and kind of vegetate. And now it's more like Jaws. We have great white sightings on a daily basis. Yeah. So, things have changed. The mainland is...
about great white sharks? White sharks?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Oh, yeah. Last year, we actually had someone who perished from a great white on the Cape last year, which was unheard of for years. Migration patterns have changed because the waters have changed. The Gulf Stream has shifted. So when Mr. Trump says he doesn't see anything changing, evidently he doesn't leave the White House very much.
Doesn't leave the golf course. Yeah.
Hey, since you brought up Trump, what do you see around?
Oh, no.
What's attached to Trump?
Besides being
attached to Trump.
Besides being narcissistic and an egomaniac, I think his presidency will be forgotten as soon as it can be. And he'll have at least one line in the history books, soon to hopefully be erased. But I honestly believe he was part of a plan, and I don't mean that in a really horrible way, but I think he came to rip things apart so we can put them back together in a little better way next time. You got to remember, it's
nice way of putting it.
Yeah, it's like the phoenix. Out of the ashes, what rises, So, he's kind of like the phoenix sort of. Only they should have open season on the phoenix. But, that's my personal opinion. Would I like to meet him? Not especially. President Obama was a statesman. He seemed to live an exemplary life compared to this guy. But that's, again, my own personal judgment. You got to remember,
I'm in any ghosts around him? Anybody that?
Oh, he does.
His attention.
He's got daddy
or his mom, or
he's got daddy's ghost, and he's trying to outdo him. I think his whole thing is he wants to be bigger than his father. His father was the consummate businessman, and I think he was going to live to outshine him no matter what he had to do. So, but anyway, that's just my own. Yes, the opinions on the radio tonight are not necessarily the station's, okay?
The management.
I'll give it a disclaimer. And by the way, just to let people know, I am a medium, so whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or Liberal, I will read for you. You can be a Bernie Sanders supporter, I don't mind. It's all good.
All good.
Sure.
Now we have about 3 minutes before the end of the show. What do you want our listeners to know, really, really know, before we run out the clock?
Besides that, I'm available if you need me. Go to the webpage at
What's your website?
It's GaryMcKinstry.com. It's a very plain old fashioned.
Can you spell that?
GaryMcKinstry. Scottish. A little Scottish,
Yes.
A
little Scottish, yeah.
Yes. And
then you have a place for them to call to schedule appointments. And usually is it like weeks before they can get on, or a few days out? Like,
we usually a month or two. It's not bad right now because we're in summer mode, but within a month or so, or possibly two, you can pretty much, connect. And if you're looking to, by the way, we also do, like I said, large events. If somebody wants to do something like that and host us, we are available. My children are all older. We do travel, so, let us know. And I'm very used to.
So if we made one here in Hawaii, it wouldn't be too hard to get you to come here.
No, we'll figure a way to get there. My brother and his wife are there every other year, so yeah, we could find a way. So yeah, we work just about everywhere. We have and a lot of what I talk sounds tongue in cheek or I'm having fun, but I do take my craft very seriously. So I do want people to know that. Do I have fun? Yes. Do I enjoy what I do? Sure. But is there a serious side? Yeah. So, and I never promise. I can't promise. Look, if you leave a session, are you gonna go home and feel healed and wonderful? No, but if I can get you on the step, whether it's going to a grief group or finding a counselor or moving forward, that's my intent. So, I always look at it as I'm the first step in a lot of different steps to get well. So that's kind of my philosophy, and yeah, fun too. I find dead people are fun.
Yeah, that's it. We call it the eighth chakra. The clown chakra is present in all our aura as well. The clown chakra.
That's the end of our show, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Gary,
thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Listeners, aloha. Blessings.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Hello, all you good-looking people out there in Revolution Radio. This is Mario. I invite you to join me Thursdays at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other. It's a show about you, it's a show about me, but ultimately it's a show where we try to have a little bit of fun. We discuss important topics, and we do our best to be apolitical. So I invite you, put on your favorite pair of comfy sweats, your smoking jacket, and grab a beverage of your choice, and join me Thursday evenings at 6 o'clock for This, That, and the Other on Revolution Radio.
Enter into a world unseen on Raven Star's Witching Hour. You will encounter eclectic topics from the realm of spirit brought into our matrix of truth. With your host, the Solaris Blue Raven. Solaris will bring you an array of unique guests covering topics from ghostly spirits to amazing anomalies, covert technology, UFOs, and shadowy global events.
And that's right here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, Saturdays midnight till 2 a.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Let the magic rise.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
When your doctor tells you have bad cholesterol or blockages in the arteries, what do you do? When diet and exercise is not enough, we try medications and hope for the best. For the last 2 decades, I have been telling people about a natural method to help solve these problems and more. Extendovite can help maintain cardiovascular health and lower blood lipid levels in adults. The 7 herbs in Extendovite are known to work together synergistically to get the results we hope for. There are many testimonials on Extendovite's effect on circulatory-related ailments. Get Extendovite today to start your journey back to a healthier life. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com or see us on Amazon.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and FreedomSlips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, FreedomSlips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.